I add my tribute to speakers before me, to Lady Raiha Mahuta, and the contribution that she has made, the inestimable contribution that she has made to the point that we have arrived at today. And with that recognition go my condolences, not only to my loved colleague Nanaia Mahuta, but to all her whānau and those related to Lady Raiha and those who love her. Tēnei te mihi ki a koe, Nanaia. This is a very significant piece of legislation, and I'm pleased that we have got now to its second reading. I want to talk briefly about some of the history of it, but I also want to talk, perhaps in response to some of the things that the previous two speakers have said, to the consequences of this legislation and the implications of it for the future. The initial settlement with Waikato-Tainui was signed by Michael Cullen on behalf of the Crown in August 2008. And the clean-up of the Waikato River, instigated by the deed of settlement, is one of the most important environmental undertakings in New Zealand history. The Waikato River is of immense importance to Waikato-Tainui. And as our longest river, running through a region of enormous economic significance, the health and well-being of the Waikato River is an issue of national priority. I recognise the wairua, that sense of connection that Tainui has with the river. I recognise the ontology and the worldview that give rise to the connection that Waikato-Tainui have with the river. And in saying that I recognise that ontology and I recognise that worldview does not mean that I share that ontology and that worldview. I am a Pākehā. I do not, as of right, as of birth, as of upbringing, share that ontology. I have my own. But I will not be as offensive as Rodney Hyde was and call those spiritual connections hocus pocus. The fact that I do not share that religious tradition does not mean that I despise it, that I will make fun of it, that I will belittle it, that I will try to ignore it in legislation. If we are to live together in this country in a peaceful and productive way out into the future, then my responsibility as a citizen, let alone as a member of Parliament, is to recognise the values of others, to recognise other worldviews, to recognise other ontologies, and to respect them, because I cannot expect the same to be given to me if I do not give it out. And therefore, I label that comment of Rodney Hyde's despicable. It is not the kind of comment that will advance progressive and peaceful aspirations of the people of Aotearoa New Zealand, whatever ethnicity we derive from. And that was an unworthy comment to be heard in this House, and not fitting of somebody who not only sets himself up as a leader of a political party, but in fact holds a ministerial warrant. And I want to lay this on the table and in the record, that that view that Rodney Hyde articulated is not shared by other Pākehā in this House. It is not worthy of somebody holding his position to be so derogatory about others' religious traditions and worldviews. I want to make a comment, particularly, Mr. Speaker, moving on from there, which relates not only to the things that Rodney Hyde said, but also that Tauhenare said. And they are these. I welcome this new co-management model. The deed of settlement allows for an unprecedented model, for something that has never been tried before. Whether, as the previous minister said, it becomes a benchmark or a model for the future remains to be seen. Quite frankly, it doesn't matter whether it becomes a model way of doing things for the future. It is unique, it is new. If it paves the way for repetition, then fine. I'm happy with that. But even if it doesn't, what it has done, Mr. Speaker, is to allow innovative ways of settling treaty claims. And at this point, I depart from what Tauhenare said before, where he said he didn't see this as a treaty settlement per se. Well, I do. I see this as a settlement of an issue of extreme importance for the country, and that is the cleaning up of the Waikato River. But I see this as an issue that comes out of treaty partnerships and comes out of resolution of historical grievances over that are contained and can be resolved through treaty matters. Now, this is part of the treaty partnership and so must be seen as part of treaty settlements per se. The fact that it is innovative and hasn't been done before must be welcomed by this House, because our approach to treaty settlements and negotiations must constantly evolve. It must be an evolutionary and a progressive process. We cannot pretend that the way we did things yesterday will be the way we do things tomorrow. We cannot pretend that the decision we made 140 years ago, 160 years ago, cannot be revisited, cannot be expressed in a different way in the future. And so what I want to say about this piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker, is that this is how we do things in New Zealand. This legislation, I say to the government, is not aspirational or non-binding. This is not aspirational or non-binding. This is the way we do things. We don't sign up to declarations because we think they don't mean anything. Like this government has just done on this very day, signed up to a declaration only because it is non-binding and aspirational. And that is how this government will try to wriggle off the hook when people from the Māori Party, who are expecting more from that declaration, come visiting the government's door and say, you signed, this government signed up to that declaration. We signed it.
Point of order.
We signed it.
Point of order, Paul Quinn.
I have to, I've sat here now for about 40 seconds and listening to the Speaker going completely away from this bill, and I think it's absolutely inappropriate.
No, the Minister's responding to some comments. I'll ask the member to continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When people who support the Māori Party come to this government looking for some practical application of the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, they will get nothing. There will be tears, because that government has only signed up to it because it is non-binding. We didn't sign it because it was non-binding. We would only sign something that was binding and real and apposite for New Zealand's law and New Zealand's legal institutions and constitutional practice. Now, Mr. Speaker, this is the way we do it. We do it with this legislation.